Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. That's Julia Gardner on the screen, and the only thing I've ever seen her in is the trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps, in which she plays the Silver Surfer. Now, she's about 2 centimeters shorter than me, and the obvious question, would I ever go with her? No, she's happily married, and her husband is naturally taller than her. As there's a picture of them. As you can see, she's about 1.65 meters, or about 5'5". If you go across, there's a top of her head, comes to about there, and as you can see, 4 or 5 inches. So I say he's about 5'10", 5'11", maybe knocking on the door of 6 foot. So she's happily married. She prefers taller men, as 99.99% of women do, so she's totally off limits. Anyway, enough about Julia. As you know, the 4B movement has been going on in America for quite some time, so I thought I'd have a look around, see where I could find. I found this. As you can see, it's Forbes, and this was written by a psychologist, and it was done on December the 24th, Christmas Eve, last year, the day before my birthday. As you can see, why the 4B movement resonates with women worldwide, by a psychologist. It's somewhat of a hip piece. It says, earlier this year, a question posed to women went viral on social media. Who would you prefer to be alone in the woods, a man or the bear? Well, bears are solitary creatures, and they wouldn't want to be with a woman. For most of the answer was a bear. While the responses may seem absurd, given the rise in sexual violence against women, which I am totally against, it's not entirely surprising. And then it says it's also not shocking that the 4B movement, a radical feminist movement that originated in South Korea in 2018, is gaining traction in America. The movement, as its name suggests, pushes back against the patriarchy and domestic violence, which I'm totally against, is based on the 4 B's, which is South Korean for no. No dating, no marriage, no sex, and no children. And it says women are rejecting any relationship dynamics that harm them, and even shaving their heads in protest against entrenched beauty standards. Well, that's a bit silly, because those women on TikTok that showing you doing it are not exactly raging beauties. They're about 3, 4s and 5s, and they have trouble attracting a man if they shave their head or not. Because, as you know, men are visual creatures. We're attracted by a woman's looks. Anyway, it says, well, one may be inclined to take a reproductive approach and put these women in the same bucket as femcells, females involuntary celibates. The two groups are divided by key difference. They are actively choosing to avoid men by being fully capable of finding partners if they so desire. But they forget that men also have a choice, and men have decided that it's not worth the effort, so men are choosing to walk away. And it said, rather than being a dating choice, many women view this movement as a necessity for their protection and survival. Yeah, the pivotal moment in history calls for lasting change in the way women are treated across the world. But most of the world is not as loopy in some areas as America is. And then we have a list of things. Women do not want to put up with mistreatment anymore. Women do not get their productive care they deserve. And then we had a example of a teenager in Texas. She abortion operate due to Texas stringent anti-abortion laws, ultimately leading to her death. Poor little mite. And then we got stories like this are not isolated. We have the Roe versus Wade. They've slipped into the article. Even when abortion is technically legal, logistical hurdles like mandatory waiting periods and limited clinic availability can make accessing care nearly impossible. Well, women should maintain their chastity until they get married and choose the right man, then they won't need to have an abortion. Because some women choose abortion as a method of birth control. And it says even those women who want children and become pregnant face the risks of miscarriages without medical intervention. And then women generally enjoy their own company. Yeah, why are they complaining on TikTok that they're lonely? And it says Pew Research says 36% of women are not in a romantic relationship with men, and there is evidence to suggest that the percentage may rise in the near future. That could be a tacit nod to 2030. And then some women argue that single women are avoiding relationships with men on their own detriment. It could be further from the truth. Women who voluntarily remain single often report higher levels of happiness than single men who are less likely to seek romantic relationships. Then why are so many women on TikTok complaining that they can't find a man? And it says it's important to remember that not all women want the same things. Some aspire to find like-minded, respectful partners. True. While others prioritize their happiness and autonomy in different ways. Women in the 4B movement are simply choosing what's best for them by putting their independence and mental peace over others. Fair enough. Now that's Forbes. Also found to support that BuzzFeed. Now, for what I believe, BuzzFeed is a leftish leaning liberal website, so you can expect some similar to this other article be taking the woman's side. Now this was posted November 20th last year. Men are reacting to women refusing to date, marry and have children or birth children with them until women's rights are equal. And it says, personally, as a guy, we may take on the whole thing. It's going to be a short-lived fad. That comes later. Now we have 16 guys giving their views, but remember, a leftish site like this could cherry-pick views and only give the ones which equal with their political viewpoint. This was also written by a lady, the Michaela Branwell, Buswell staff. Let's see what it says about her. Reject. She's a junior staff writer, BuzzFeed, covering everything trending news and latest viral TikTok. Outside of work, she likes going to concerts, playing with her 4-year-old beagle, a dog, and making Spotify playlists. Good for her. The 4B movement, a feminist process started in South Korea. Women advocate for women to have equal rights through protests by refusing to date, marry and have sex or birth children with men until their rights are realized under the law. The 4B movement's popularity is surging in America after Trump's re-election. Then we have a picture. You notice most of these women are usually liberal, middle-class girls and women. They like to get in groups because they don't have anything better to do. And then it said we asked men to share their thoughts and opinions on the 4B movement in America. And they had diverse responses. Not really. Many of which were starkly different from the responses we received from women in the post you can read here. If you click that, you get the responses from women. Let's move down. I think everyone in America should join the 4B movement. Special lives, time back, yada yada yada. You can click on that and read it yourself. I've not read it. Right, it says, here's what 16 men had to say about the 4B movement. Now, women need to take a deep breath. The world is not going to blow up anytime soon, and their demands are only going to punish society in the long run. Now, all the rest are either simps or guys who are not taking the red pill. The only ones which are red pillish is this one, 7. Personally, if a guy may take on the whole thing, it's going to be a short-lived fad, as I said at the top. A small group of women withholding sex isn't going to last long. And then again, an example. Actually, a decent guy isn't going to have sex with you until you have sat down and talked about the possible outcome. And then 13. Men have basically started their own woman-free movement, which is a tactic not to MGTOW. First, you started telling us we're inherently dangerous, you don't want us or need us anymore. The manosphere was a reaction to the female sense of entitlement and misandry, i.e. they hate men. In society, that men walk away first. Trump's election was a reaction to the grievances of men being ignored. And then, I'm a white 30-year-old male, wholeheartedly support the movement. And then 16, anyone decency is still on your side. I voted blue, he voted for Kabbalah. Anyway, that's BuzzFeed. Now, on the opposite side of the 4KB movement, I found this. This is a site called Medium. This was done on June 24th last year. Korea's 4B movement barely exists. Now, this looks at the numbers and the percentages, which is quite interesting. The relevant bit is here. At absolute best, there are a few thousand women involved in the 4B movement in South Korea. When the movement started in 2019, 4B is estimated to have approximately 4,000 adherents. For the sake of the conversation, let's say numbers have doubled in the past 5 years, putting them at 8,000. And then you drop down, the numbers show there are approximately 25.84 million women in South Korea, which means 0.03% of the female population of South Korea may be involved in the 4B movement, keeping in mind that estimated membership numbers are likely a lot higher than reality. And then this matters because Western TikTok feminists, which they are, have been posting videos attributing South Korea's declining birth rate to the 4B movement. From a statistical perspective, this is highly improbable, if not outright impossible. Again, only 0.03% of nearly 26 million women may be involved. And then, on the assumption the 4 community is having any kind of negative impact on South Korea's birth rates to be correct, it's safe to assume that the buy-in rate among women who would have to jump from 0.3% to the neighborhood of 25 to 30% is rather dramatic, wouldn't you say? And then we go back to America. The 4B movement is nothing more than a social media fodder du jour for TikTok feminists. Frankly, most of them have moved on to new nonsense. The life cycle for social media trends is becoming shorter and shorter in all circles of influence. Now that's the logistical point of the 4B movement. When it comes down to this is the real reason. Young Korean men and women simply can't afford to have children anymore. Even South Korean women have posted on TikTok that is the case. The high cost of living is killing birth rates in numerous countries around the world. That could also include America, as well as here in Britain. Not just in South Korea. This is a global issue, one that has been building for decades. There's no America on this, so you're going to have to take it with a pinch of salt if you're not an American and pick out your country. The closest to America is there on Canada. And then, as such, given the 4B movement any credit for the declining South Korean birth rate is patently absurd. But the people making these claims, i.e. TikTok feminists, generally do not give a fat crap if you're right, if they're right or not. They're just trying to drum up likes by spreading misinformation and a special kind of sad. And also attention. Now going back to America, this is South Korea's population, 51.75 million. This is the population of America, 340.1 million. You can say the 1 million are those which have crept across the border and sneakily wanted to become Americans illegally. Now, South Korea's population is 6 times more than America's population. So, if you go back to this, where is it? 8,000. Now, let's be generous and say there's 6 times 8, which is 48,000. This is a percentage calculator. There's 170 million women in America. 48,000 of American women are in the 4B movement. That is 0.02%. Now let's increase the number of them. Come on, Christopher. Active. To 52,000. The entire population of South Korea. Now, 52,000 of 170 million brings it up to 0.03%. Now, let's be really, really generous. There are 1 million American women right across America, every race that there is, and they've all gone into the full 4B movement for 100%. They've all shaved their heads. They're not having anything to do with men, American men at all. They're 0.5% of all the American women. That is just 1 million. So that shows that this is rather silly. This is just BuzzFeed jumping on the bandwagon because women like that have nothing else to do. And this article shows the reality of it, and this is the logic behind that. I think I'm on the 20 minutes now, so I'll see if I can find anything more about the 4B movement. But apparently it's a damp squib in America, and women like this are too dim to understand that it's not going to get anywhere. If you can hear knocking in the background, it's next door doing something in the kitchen, so sorry about the background noise, but I think that's it for this one. I'll try and look for more on this article or something similar for next week, but for now, you all know the routine, like, discreet, like, etc. It's completely up to you. So until next Monday, that's it from me. Bye bye.